Imagine planting a tree once and feeding 10 generations of your family from it. It sounds like a fairy tale, but the 10 food-bearing trees I'm going to walk you through today can genuinely thrive for up to 300 years. If your goal is to cut grocery costs, invest your time wisely, and leave behind a living food source that outlasts you, this guide was made for you. Get these in the ground now, and you're essentially engineering a food system that can quietly feed your bloodline for 3 centuries. Pay close attention when we reach number 7, because it tends to flip people's entire perspective on what a backyard can actually do. Let's start with number 1, the mulberry, which I like to call the grocery-proof superfood. Mulberries are essentially the outlaws of the fruit world. You'll rarely spot them at a supermarket because they're simply too fragile to survive packing, shipping, and shelf life. A gentle squeeze, and they bruise, which is exactly why they're such a treasure for a home grower. While the rest of the world settles for tough, flavorless commercial fruit, you get to harvest an almost forgotten powerhouse that's syrupy sweet and bursting with nutrients. One mature mulberry can rain down 50 to 80 pounds of berries each summer. They're also one of the quickest returns in the orchard world, often bearing fruit in just 3 to 5 years, while an apple tree might keep you waiting a full decade. And toughness? They're nearly bulletproof. Drought, weak soil, total neglect, the mulberry shrugs it off. It grows quickly and asks nothing of you. No pruning, no spraying. In parts of Central Asia, dried mulberries are still a winter staple, delivering close to 10% protein, which is remarkable for any fruit. It's the do-nothing tree that just keeps producing for half a century or more. Number 2 is the hazelnut, the shelf-stable powerhouse. Most fruit trees mostly give you sugar and water. The hazelnut does something far more important for long-term survival. It delivers dense calories. In a world where fats and proteins are the toughest nutrients to come by, hazelnut trees act like nature's compact energy reserves. A single pound of hazelnuts contains roughly 2,800 calories. Do the math on a mature tree pulling in 30 pounds of nuts, and you're looking at about 84,000 calories landing in your yard each year. They handle temperate climates beautifully and aren't picky about soil. They're early performers too, often bearing nuts within 3 to 4 years. But here's the real magic. In the shell, these nuts stay good for over a year, with no fridge required. Historically, they pulled European communities through grain failures, supplying the fats that made surviving brutal winters possible. I know food security can feel like a heavy topic, but something as simple as planting 2 compatible varieties for cross-pollination quietly tilts the odds in your favor. You're not just gardening, you're laying down a safety net. If you're the type who thinks 5 and 10 years ahead, rather than just to next weekend, drop the word "ready" in the comments, so I know you're walking this road with us. Third on the list is the fig tree, the ancient emblem of plenty. Figs have anchored food security for millennia and show up in nearly every ancient text as a symbol of wealth. There's a very grounded reason for that. Fig trees are wildly productive and almost impossible to kill. A mature tree can offer 100 to 200 pounds of fruit every season, even when planted in rocky ground and baking sun, where lesser trees would give up. Think of that one neighbor or relative who always had a bowl of fruit on the counter, regardless of drought or grocery prices. It usually traced back to a gnarled old fig in the corner of the yard that nobody fussed over. While everyone else worried about the cost of snacks, they were quietly drying figs for winter. The original homemade energy bar. The real long-term value lives in those dried figs, around 1,200 calories per pound, loaded with minerals to carry a household through lean stretches. Figs are speedy producers too, often fruiting within 2 or 3 years. If you feel like you've fallen behind, the fig is the fastest catch-up move you can make. a low-effort legacy tree that you can start from a single cutting today. Number 4 is the apple, the cold country survival staple. Tropical fruits steal the spotlight, but no tree has carried more people through harsh winters than the modest apple. They're so ordinary that most of us forget what a serious production engine they really are. Once established, a single tree can bring in an impressive 200 to 400 pounds of fruit each year. Its survival edge lies in storage and versatility. Before refrigerators and supermarkets, apples were the main source of nutrition and vitamin C from autumn through spring. Stored in a cool, dark place, certain varieties keep for 3 to 6 months. Dried, they push past a year. Turned into cider, they essentially become permanent pantry stock. Apples test your patience a bit, taking 6 to 10 years to hit full production, and they usually need a partner variety nearby for pollination. But the payoff is enormous. A family with just 4 mature trees can pull close to 800 pounds of food annually. That's a cold, hardy legacy quietly feeding your household for 50 to 80 years, with very little input. If you're tired of leaning on fragile supply chains and ready to build something your family can stand on, hit subscribe. I'm laying out the long-term self-sufficiency blueprints most people have forgotten existed. Number 5 is the persimmon, the candy tree of survival. People sometimes call it the fruit of the gods, and there's a good reason. It's one of the rare trees that delivers a heavy burst of sugar and energy, precisely when the rest of nature is going dormant. As other food sources fade in late autumn and early winter, the persimmon stands there glowing with bright orange fruit, often clinging to its harvest right through the first snowfall. A mature tree can produce 150 to 300 pounds annually, basically turning the backyard into a seasonal vault of vitamins A and C. The real advantage in a survival setting is how effortlessly it preserves. The fruit is naturally loaded with sugar, and when dried, it develops a chalky white coating with a chewy date-like texture that easily holds up for over a year without any preservatives. Soldiers and travelers throughout history carried dried persimmons as lightweight, calorie-rich provisions that wouldn't spoil. They're also remarkably resistant to most pests and diseases. Yes, they take about 4 to 6 years to fruit, but they're a true plant-and-forget investment. With 1 persimmon in the ground, you've secured a yearly delivery of sweetness and survival energy that arrives like clockwork, right when you need it most. We're officially at the halfway mark, but the real showstoppers are still ahead, because the next trees don't just hand you snacks. They hand you the survival essentials, fats, timber, and massive caloric loads that can carry a whole community through the harshest winters. Number 6 is the chestnut, often called the bread tree across Europe and Asia. And for one extraordinary reason, it produces nutrition that behaves more like grain than like fruit or nuts. Most nuts lean heavy on fats, but the chestnut breaks the mold by being loaded with complex carbohydrates instead. A mature tree can drop 200 to 400 pounds of starchy, filling nuts that essentially function like potatoes dangling from a branch. You can roast them, boil them, or grind them into a gluten-free flour that stores for months. In the mountain villages where wheat couldn't grow, chestnut groves kept communities alive through every major famine recorded. They take 5 to 7 years to start producing, but you're really planting a 300-year inheritance. With today's blight-resistant varieties, the bread tree has become the ultimate food security insurance policy. If this approach to legacy food is resonating with you, hit the like button. It pushes this information toward more people who are done depending on the grocery store. Number 7 is the Carob, the drought-proof chocolate pod. I teased it at the start, and here it is, a tree that drops hundreds of pounds of naturally chocolate-flavored pods every year. The carob is a survivalist's dream species, thriving in punishing heat and rocky ground. where most fruit trees would simply die. While neighbors are watering frantically through a drought, the carob is calmly producing 200 to 400 pounds of sweet pods you can eat straight off the branch or grind into a cocoa substitute. What truly sets it apart is shelf life. The pods are naturally low in moisture, which means they store easily for 2 to 3 years in a cool, dry spot with no processing or special equipment whatsoever. They're about 50% natural sugar, meaning instant usable energy. Historically, they were standard emergency rations during long sieges and famines because they simply refused to rot. Establishment takes 6 to 8 years, but a single carob tree is a 100-year investment in a sweet, calorie-rich future that asks almost nothing from you. Number 8 is the walnut, the black gold of the homestead. Walnuts are the ultimate 2-for-1 investment in a long-term food system because they deliver one of the toughest nutrients to secure in a self-sufficient life: dense, healthy fats. A mature walnut tree yields 50 to 80 pounds of nuts a year, which works out to a stunning 150,000 to 240,000 calories from one tree. In a scenario where meat or dairy might be scarce, walnuts become a load-bearing pillar of your diet. They're nutritionally dense, rich in omega-3s and protein, and their hard shells act like built-in storage containers, keeping the nuts fresh for over a year without refrigeration. But the food is only half the value. High-grade walnut timber is genuinely valuable, often worth thousands of dollars per mature tree. You'll wait 6 to 10 years for the first nuts, but the tree can keep feeding your household for 150 to 200 years. Plant a walnut, and you're essentially opening a biological savings account that pays nutritional interest every year and leaves a major timber inheritance for the next generation. Number 9 is the oak, the ancient calorie factory. Most people only think of oaks as shade or lumber, but for thousands of years they were the primary calorie source of entire civilizations. Unlike fruit trees that demand pruning and care, the oak is a true plant-and-forget food system. One mature tree can drop anywhere from 200 to 1,000 pounds of acorns in a strong year, with zero labor on your end. Many assume acorns are inedible, but they're actually packed with complex carbohydrates and healthy fats. Most varieties contain tannins that taste bitter, but a simple water leaching process, mastered by our ancestors thousands of years ago, transforms them into a mellow, versatile flour, suitable for bread, porridge, even a coffee substitute. The oak's real superpower is resilience. It's one of the toughest trees on Earth, shrugging off storms, pests, and droughts that would flatten a commercial orchard. It takes 20 to 30 years to peak, but an oak is a true legacy organism, often living 200 to 500 years. When you plant one, you're not just adding a tree to the yard. You're founding a permanent food forest that will feed your community for centuries after you're gone. Number 10 is the pecan, the ultimate calorie king. The pecan tree is far more than a stately backyard giant. It's a calorie factory hiding in plain sight. A mature pecan can produce 200 to 400 pounds of nuts a year, packed with healthy fats and essential proteins. A single tree can comfortably feed a small family through a food shortage. Its survival edge is in its natural storage system. The thick, sturdy shell keeps the nuts nutrient-dense for up to 2 years without any refrigeration. Indigenous peoples leaned on pecans as a strategic resource precisely because they're lightweight to carry yet pack enormous energy per ounce. You'll wait 7 to 10 years for the first crop, but the tree pays you back for centuries, living 200 to 300 years and outlasting generations. Plant a pecan, and you're not just growing food. You're locking in a biological inheritance that will still be feeding your great-grandchildren long after you're gone. Building a true food legacy isn't really about quick wins. It's about flipping your mindset from consumer to producer. These 10 trees, from the bread-like chestnut to the calorie-rich pecan, represent more than nutrition. They stand for genuine independence. While the modern food system runs on fragile supply chains and constantly rising prices, a yard anchored by these survival giants becomes a quiet, self-renewing fortress against uncertainty. And you don't need acreage to start. Even 1 or 2 of these legacy trees planted this season can reshape your family's future. You're trading a bit of patience and a corner of soil today for decades of security, and a gift that can feed your descendants for a century or longer. So tell me, which of these survival giants is going in the ground first for you? Drop a comment below, and let's talk through the best varieties for your climate. If this guide gave you something useful, tap that like button and subscribe. It helps us keep delivering the knowledge you need to build a truly self-sufficient future.